Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. Now, before we get started, if you're someone that's into this unscripted live format, please like, share, subscribe. And in addition, please check out the Creators Conclave. All the information is down below, but from now and going on into the future, you're going to see a number of individuals, a host of them, all in the creative geekosphere. And of course, they are very professional and prolific members of the greater creators conclave, and so please check them out when you have the opportunity. All right, everyone. And lastly, if you would like to participate on the show live through Facebook, please go to chat.restream.io/fb. I know that's a lot, but the link is down below if you want your profile picture and name to appear along with everyone else that participates in the show through YouTube and Twitch. Okay, let's get into it. So the thumbnail and the idea we have here, we're going to talk about knights and honor, and it made me think about this subject again because of the release of the movie The Green Knight. And although there are some indie games that are specifically designed around knighthood, Pendragon really comes to mind. Dungeons and Dragons seems to be the most popular game, and though it has tangential relationships with the idea of being a knight, of course, with the proverbial paladin, and there have been subclasses related to it, such as the cavalier. There have been the subclass of the knight has been created, and then there are other honor-bound type of martial classes, the samurai being the most important. I thought we could find some things to do in a setting in which, and some adventures and things like that involve, well, being honorable. And I think first of all, one of the main functions in a game in which honor seems to be paramount is that in a setting like that, honor has almost a physical representation in the world. It is a thing that moves everyone, whether you are playing a Viking game and your word means everything, your promises. You're playing an ancient samurai game in the Bushido code and the code of being a samurai. Your face, your promises mean just as much as your fighting prowess. I think as well in a game which involves honor and knighthood and nobility, that the same thing can be said. And I think one part, mind you, I won't be able to give away spoilers for the movie The Green Knight, but I will be able to talk about it because fortunately, unfortunately, the movie The Green Knight is based on the story of the Green Knight, except for a little bit of, from what I understand, there's a little twist at the end because while the epic poem about the Green Knight has a definitive ending, the movie makes it a little bit nebulous as to what happens to Gawain or Gawain, however you wish to pronounce his name, the main character. And in the movie, in the poem, there is there is a physical representation or confrontation, if you will, a challenge to this main character's honor within the world. And I think that's the kind of thing that in our role-playing games, when we talk about honor and face and loyalty and duty, that our real world concept of those things, we tend to push that aside because it's not as important today. But at that time, even in a fictional setting, at that time, people thought it a real thing. And getting on the same page, your session zero, if you will, with your players is very important, as if to say, we need to mechanize this. And some of your enemies will be able to know whether you are an individual of low honor or you keep your promises, or the monstrosities that you might come across. Your enemies that confront you may be able to tell how much honor you have simply by your presence or by the actions that you have done, your legendary actions. Yeah, Mike Gould says honor has more value in a setting yeah, where politics are prevalent, like the samurai. Your actions reflect on your lord. Exactly, and also, strangely enough, what came up on my feed for Netflix here in the States was a movie that was recently released, known as simply The King, and it's a in a world where honor happens to be very paramount. There's a lot of machinations that happen in the background in terms of your ability to beat ass isn't necessarily the best skill to deal with the political ramifications of what you can do. An example would be in okay, in the movie Troy. Okay, I know I'm grabbing a lot of intellectual properties here, mixing and matching them, but follow me here. In the movie Troy, you have Achilles, the man killer, and Achilles is the golden boy. He's the master of combat, and of course he's got he's golden haired. And despite the fact that he's the best warrior, of course, surrounded by his very loyal um, oh, what's their name? Meridons? I can't remember their names, but his loyal squad of soldiers, of course, nearly all of them being able to fight better than your average Greco-Roman soldiers. There's a little jealousy in there, right? And sure, you might be a knight who's loyal to a lord, but if you start gaining prestige, people start following your rule, you start gaining an entourage. Is it the Miradons? Thank you very much. The Miradons. That's it. Or the Myrmidons. Excuse me, Myrmidons. And anything from jealousy to deceit to, you know, a very honorable person might be tasked with holding a secret, which means that you have to lie, but because of your honor, you may be tasked with keeping that secret, which means that by your word, you have to keep that secret, and so on and so forth. And a lot of that can become pretty interesting, especially if the world, the physics of the world understands how honor operates. Meaning, like, maybe there are monsters that go after liars, or there are particular giants or creatures or something that can smell out the most honorable and allow you to they'll step aside to allow you to pass by, or they make threats to family and loved ones that you're unable to stop for maybe the dishonorable actions that you have to take, but those dishonorable actions might lead to saving the countryside. Mike says knights tend to break into orders, houses, noble lines, kingdoms, or hedge knights. Yeah. When establishing a group or individual knight, what are the rules of that organization? Is there an oath? Yeah, yeah. A flag? Yep. A seal, a coat of arms, colors, or other guidelines in recognizing this group. And devotion has a lot to do with that too, right? How you hear a lot of God, king, and country, right? It's the military code where it's like sure, you could say the words, but who are you really devoted to? Is it more to your family, more to your order, or is it to a king? To the people, the countryside, and that's usually where a lot of the drama comes in. Is that tension and it's that pull, and I like it. I like it a lot. Kylie says honor is also indicative of a strong society that can afford the luxury of maintaining an honor code. Yeah, 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 and um, to add to that, because you're absolutely right there, Kylie, a strong society that can afford the luxury of having a code of honor also means that there is wealth to be had. And how do you divide up that wealth? Well, maybe we'll have to divide it up based on who's loyal to who owns what landed materials, how many people are loyal to you, and how do you control a population uh, where people have free access to wealth? Well, you have to. you have to control that wealth, because if wealth is land and if you live on the land, you could just say, well, why isn't the land just mined? Well, if you manipulate people and you have certain rules of conduct, whether it's by blood, by deeds, by merit, or what have you, yeah. If you, hey, you want to own this land, you've got to become a squire first, and then raise yourself up to be a hedge knight, and then eventually, go into marriage. That's a lot of that had to do with that. There were rules and regulations, and of course, they broke those rules and regulations all the time. Um, the You guys bring up Game of Thrones. Yeah, in Game of Thrones, the battle of the Five Kings was basically about, like, ooh, who really takes over when the next person comes in? And sure, there are air quotes rules for how we transition power, but everyone tries to break those, whether it's a bastard child, or words spoken in secret, or a document, or what have you, or just basically power too. Who's got the bigger sword? Mike says examples: the knights in Game of Thrones were tied either to a house or family, or an organization such as the Watch or the Brotherhood. Yep, absolutely. And how much power are they given? The Night's Watch had its own code, but could the Night's Watch, did they really have a lot of power to requisition supplies or whatnot? Not really so much if you think about it. But they were in ultimate control at the wall, which is pretty interesting. Mike Gould says, extending this to World War One, early pilots were like knights of the air. Thus, the flying circus was born as Germans painted their planes in striking colors to represent them like a coat of arms. There's some pretty interesting visuals during World War One, where it was the transition from honorable knights over into a technological warfare with, like, Gatling guns and gas masks, along with swords and coats of arms and whatnot. It's pretty interesting, in a depressing kind of sense, because we know what warfare is like now. But yeah, and it's weird how in role playing, not weird, but I think there's a place for us to change things in role playing games. For the role playing doesn't have to stop. I mean, a monstrous troll could step out of the shadows and confront the players and speak about the ancestor of one or more of the player characters and how they had a confrontation, or recognize a blade that was used, or a fighting style, or a coat of arms that might be very important. As that coat of arms might be more than just a symbol. It might represent a sovereign nation. Everywhere that coat of arms goes, that's where the sovereign nation uh, exists. And there might be criminals that want to take refuge under that coat of arms. There may be political dissidents that want to leave their nation state and find protection under your banner. There might be certain rules and regulations your under your nation, and you go to another nation, and there might be conflict between the two, especially if, say, your order has mercy and you have investigative courts of law, and theirs, it might be pretty brutal. And whoever speaks up, oh well, let's have public executions in the next, I don't know, 10 minutes. And having that confrontation as well. We'll talk about tourneys and parties and festivals and things like that in a minute. Mike says, early battle tech saw mech warrior as knights, and thus many mechs painted similarly. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Matter of fact, there's a whole subculture of painted planes, and not just the words painted on the side of bombs, but I mean the fuselage paintings and stuff. I think you could do some Google foo and find that. Yeah. Mike says camo patterns for battle mechs tend to resemble knightly tabards more than actual camouflage. Yep, bright colors, checker patterns, stripes, and even flames. Also, the we as players in a lot of role playing games understand the desire to remain hidden. Stealth tactics are a modern tactic, But back in the day, there was a reason why people lined up on battlefield. You wanted to be seen. You wanted your story to be told. It was immortality to be told, to have stories told to you. And how interesting would a classic spells in Dungeons and Dragons, be far more related to bards than it would, and the bards and the gods more than a classic spell cast to raise you from the dead. That the goal would be to have songs and ballads sung about you that literally make you immortal, whether it is either bringing you back from the dead or you die gloriously, but another person comes to take your place who just so happens to carry on your name and your legacy, right? In a narrative sense. And that would be pretty interesting. I think there's is it Phoenix Command or something? There is a role playing game, not video game. I'm not talking about the video game, but there's a role playing game where every time you die, your character specifically comes back more powerful, but it's like you can only die 7 times. Something, I can't remember the role playing game, and for some reason Phoenix Command comes to mind. But um, anyway, Mike Gould says in cultures without an oath per se, lineage is everything. How you die outweighs why. Yeah, oh yeah. Viking culture comes to mind. Yep, better to die on your feet and thus secure your place in Valhalla. And in fantasy gaming, why can't we make that a real thing? Like, yeah, hey, if I die, you know, in I don't know, slaying, doing the last, striking the last hit on that troll, and then I go to Valhalla, maybe your character really does go to Valhalla. Why not? And that used to be a real side note for us grognards out there. That used to be a real thing. That was why alignment mattered, because your character would go to the plane of existence most related to your alignment and your actions, and then you could role play other characters finding a way to go through the planes of existence to your alignment to retrieve your soul and bring you back. And honestly, you don't have to stop right there. Maybe the player characters do die and go to an honorable place, or a place where their honor is challenged. And we'll reflect back to like Tourneys and the Green Knight and stuff in a minute, referring to like an adventure might not be for to kill things and take its stuff. It may literally be for glory and honor and prestige. Kind of a cool thing. Mike Gould says knightly orders might be dogged by their history for good or bad. Yeah. Like Vikings and samurai, how your fathers acted colors the perception of those who follow. And what a great way to come up with character concepts. Imagine a player character that has a class or background or a feature that they were born into. Like, for example, a character might be a paladin and a rogue, and have, rogue character levels, not because they are dishonorable themselves, but the world operates in such manners of honor that it's a weird thing to embrace, but because your father was a thief, you are considered a thief, and unfortunately, you're walking around like, I'm really good at thieving, even though I didn't mean to. Or you could just play a paladin and have like a criminal background or something, and have lockpick tools in your back pocket. You're like, I don't know why I carry these around with me, but one of these days I might need them, or criminals might see you and go like, yeah, oh, you think you're better than us, but you're still part of our group, right? Um, AG says knights with coats of arms wanted to be seen to earn glory for their own families, which were, in essence, a state institution. Oh, hell yeah. And I think there's space for that. I mean, could you imagine, instead of, I know this sounds strange, but instead of like uh, beating things about the head and shoulders and taking their stuff, maybe the successful campaigns that the players go on garners them certain things. Like, for example, there might be, it's the idea of gaining the Holy Avenger, right? It's given to you, and player characters might acquire boons and, of course, class levels and features and magic items or temporary things. Like maybe there are gifts from the gods and whatnot that the players are given, and that represents in game, that represents their successful battles. And so if they succeed, I don't know, the battle is called um, the battle of the Black Fire or something, and then all of a sudden that player now has a spell like ability of Black Fire simply because they were successful in a battle that was named a certain thing. That'd be kind of interesting too. You could even preload a conflict with another nation state by almost stating up front what the results would be, and then if the players succeed they get that thing, you know pretty interesting. And you could even play it like 300, where in the movie 300 there were almost literal mutants and giants in it, as from my point of view, like a bardic tale, it was described larger than life, and that if a player goes to fight against a nation state of the dragon kind, of course they fight lizard folk and dragonborn, but maybe that's just the way it was told by other people, which would be kind of a weird thing to embrace. Like, why haven't the dragons taken over your nation state? Well, it's because that's how it's described in hindsight and what people think they see, even though that's not really what how it was on the battlefield. Yeah, Um, Mike responds to AG saying your knightly arms thus created a responsibility to it. How you act reflects on that symbol. And what a great way to include or incorporate uh, an alignment styled thing where you might have, like, you could have variations of a similar oath, like a knight, an oath or a code of conduct, maybe like four or five, six or so. And a player might pick one, and that might not correspond to their coat of arms because their own house or their coat of arms might have a specific thing. And I suppose you could do it like piecemeal. Like, okay, well, the house words are one thing, my knightly order is another thing, and then my personal code is a third thing, and then kind of like build one in chunks. Like you might have like six houses, you may have six coats of arms, you might have six backgrounds or something. I don't know. Anyway, Deadman says there are many areas in the BattleTech setting where it's important to be a visible warrior. If they can't see your mech, you can't get fame from winning the battle. Yeah, the opposite might be true in the setting where using stealth, hiding, invisibility, darkness, fighting undercover might actually work against you. And in the Dungeon Master's Guide, they actually have, they make honor and renowned a stat from 3 to 18. And that you could literally say, all right, well, if you, yes, you can backstab as a rogue, or sneak attack. Not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily need to be a backstab, but you could be an opportunist or something. Sure, but you're going to lose like a D4 of your. Every time you use that sneak attack, you're going to lose a D4 of your honor. And you're like, ooh, is it worth it? I don't know. You know, maybe there are monsters out there that instead of the dungeon master deciding which monsters attack who, it could be based on your honor setting. Like whoever's got the lowest honor gets attacked first. They get piled on. And like, that makes sense. Yeah, maybe, and that might be a reason for players to keep their honor levels up or something. Mike's like, 300 was a Frank Miller fever dream. Yeah, yeah. But I like the idea. I don't know. I love the idea that there's that the movie is the visual representation of a bardic tale of this battle, and it makes you wonder: did the people at that time, in their heads, did they see that very thing that we saw in the movie? Right? I know in hindsight, they're just people, but did they see that in their heads because they believed what they saw? I don't know. I just find that interesting. Much like how Central American Aztecs, there was a claim that they couldn't see the sailing ships of the pioneers that came to the Americas because they couldn't perceive it, because they couldn't imagine it. Something like that. There's some kind of version like that. Anyway, Mike says, in modern terms, I've belonged to, let's say, a group who ride motorcycles and wear the same patch on your back. Yep. That had its own political repercussions. Your actions reflect on the rest, and how you react to challenge or stress or calls for aid mean a lot. Your actions now create the perception that others with the same crest will act the same. Oh, hell's yes. If you've ever, point of fact, if you've ever been to a funeral, and I don't mean to belittle those who've passed away, but if you've ever been to a funeral of someone who's been in the military, and I have, and the gentleman that passed away, unfortunately, this wasn't anyone I knew. This was someone that my wife knew, and I went, to support. The gentleman that passed away had some issues, mental issues and other social issues, not fitting in, borderline homeless, and may have had drug issues, whatever. But this individual served in the military. When the word went out, two gentlemen, I live in Central Ohio, two gentlemen from Tennessee drove their motorcycles 4.5 to 5 hours, arrived. Now, I'm talking motorcycles, leathers, patches, and everything. Got to the funeral home, had with them in their bag their dress uniforms, dressed in their dress uniforms. They had music, they did the honors, they folded the flag. It was incredible. They handed the flag over to the family. It was this, if you've ever seen a military funeral with the slow processions, and I was just like, what? They and afterwards they got undressed, they got back on their motorcycles and shoo, left. And I was like, damn. But there is a, like you mentioned, Mike, there is a call of service to people who are of the same order, and how dishonorable it would be for you to not show up. It's why a friend of mine was a Philadelphia police officer, and he always had in his closet his police uniform. And if someone were to become injured or pass away on the job, hey, he's like, I'm off work. I gotta go get dressed. I'm leaving, and they show up in a procession. That's just what you did. And so, what a, I mean, of course, that's a great reason for why should players be where they are, because there was a call. We heard the horns. There was a message. One of our fellow soldiers that we never knew before, a part of our order, passed away under mysterious circumstances. Of course, we're going to show up and investigate, right? Yeah, yeah, yep. Patriot Guard riders. Yeah, yeah, dead man. I know I'm butchering the process by which that happens, but to see it in action was just incredible, and I can't, I can't say enough for it. It's incredible. I've also been to Arlington, Virginia, the resting place of the unknown soldier. That's pretty incredible too. That place, and there's always some asshole. Anyway, I was a teenager at the time, but whatever. Mike says bards should play a larger part in any setting with knights or similar orders, recognizing heraldry, actually behaving as heralds for a knight, spreading knowledge of deeds, rules of engagement. Bards probably represent a lot more when it comes to clerical orders too. Singing of stories, telling stories. I mean, if you think about it, the movie 300 might have had someone with bardic abilities narrating the entire story to the end, right? Because by if you follow the movie 300, it doesn't start out with you seeing what's happening. It starts out with you hearing a story of what happened. And that Yeah, I think bards would be very important. And this also brings up the idea that every character doesn't need to be a fighter or a paladin or a knight. A character could very well be a bard, a full bard or a full, rogue or something like that in a knightly order, and participate with their skills completely and their capabilities completely wrapped around the idea of a knightly order. A bard that comes forward and speaks for the group and parlays or tells stories when both groups, both an enemy nation state comes to have a festival or a tourney, or to uh, parlay a surrender, or maybe just a dinner or something like that, and this person regales the great deeds of the knightly order, or even just has a memory of all the great deeds that happened before them, and other player characters are like, I know we're second level, but we're gonna have to defeat some trolls because my my dad and my aunt, they went out defeating trolls. I think I need to start defeating trolls myself, and the trolls are like, oh, here we go again. Oh, here, come try to defeat me. Of course, you slayed my aunt and my dad. It's like, listen, that's not exactly how it happened. Well, that's how they tell it. you know, yeah. Mike says, even if you dislike a fellow member of that shield or crest or banner order, yeah, you show respect. As said in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, the rule is no blades, no bows. You bury your issues and show up. That is more true than a little bit, even in the military, right? Because these are people who, in normal circumstances, you wouldn't associate yourself with, but the crucible of challenges and battles mean you defend them, which comes to mind here again, the challenge of honor and alignment, right? Do you does a lawful and a good knight who comes to the aid of a probably neutral, bordering on evil, maybe a little chaos in there, um, fellow knight who passes away or dies under mysterious circumstances and comes to their aid, or maybe they're in trouble and they're running from the law and comes to their aid, are they wrong? And the answer is yes and no. That's where the cool part comes in, not to decide up front whether it's right or wrong. It's well, what do you do? They're a criminal, they're about to be hung, you're a lawful knight, they're evil, you never liked them to begin with, but they're part of your knightly order. Do you save them? Do you speak on their behalf? Do you put yourself in their stead? Do you think there's a way for them to change? Right? Yeah, I love it. Oh, yep. Dead Man says the Jack stare from the Netflix series The Witcher. Oh, we're going to The Witcher. Ba, 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 ba. I'm gonna get dinged on that one. Sorry, but yeah, yeah, exactly. I love all of the professional renditions of that song. It's really good. Some people have done a really good job on that. Michael says, I'm a member of a paintball team named after the Black Company books. Ooh, oh, that's cool. We all have the unit patch. When things go sideways, we act more like a family. We may not get along all the time, but if someone has a need, your company show up. Yeah. And strangely enough, we know in real life, it's there are times where like I've spoken to my wife about certain situations, and she'll say like, yeah, she'll say something and go, well, this and that and the other, um this person's having problems, what should I do? And then I'll answer like, well, there is no choice. You show up. Like, there's sometimes there it sounds like there's a choice, but there really isn't one, right? You do what's necessary. You show up. And I've had the same argument with my bosses because where as you guys know, I work for the post office. I'm a letter carrier here in the States. And there was a we've had situations where carriers have been either delayed in their function or gotten injured by saving the lives of other people. And we've had this argument with management that you are technically not supposed to deviate from the delivery of your route to do these things. And I said, well, yeah, but if you see a child with a ball rolling out in the street and you think that child's going to run out and get it, or an old lady is about to fall over, or she's trying to get her trash can up to the side of her house or something, there is no choice. You show up and you do it. You don't. And it came up because a letter carrier broke their ankle jumping into a minivan because the child messed with the gear shift and the van started rolling out of control, and the carrier ran over, jumped in, stopped the van from rolling out into traffic, and children was inside, mom got out of the vehicle, whatever. And they were like, well, that's not our fault. And they're like, yeah, but we're part of the community. That's a real thing. I get you don't want to pay somebody for having their ankle broken, but that's not a choice. That's just a thing you do, So yeah, those issues come up all the time, and it's pretty daunting. Mike says, I can remember a funeral where I showed up knowing there was one other that, well, it was one other that had, well, very bad blood. Yeah. No blades, no bows. Something else I think we could include in a world where honor is a thing is that maybe, like, okay, much like lining up on the battlefield and being known for what you're doing, you could literally have player interacted conflicts that we're choosing at the very moment to do the thing. Like, a dungeon master comes up with, there's a bunch of ogres and minotaurs. It's the giant sized versions of the goblinoids or something, and the players might say, all right, you know what? I'll take on 3 of your best against one of mine. And the monsters are like, oh, really? Oh, okay, then I get to choose where we're going to do it. We're going to do it on, in the, I don't know, the tumbling cliffs or something, in that valley where there's always tumbling rock slides or something. And the players are like, okay, then I get to pick the weapons, And then the bad guys like, we get to pick the method. No magic. And like, no magic, no wizards, no wizards. They're like, all right, click, let's get this started, right? Like, that might be a real thing. I mean, in reality, people used to show up to watch wars on the sidelines, and even the idea of duels, or at least honorable conflict, where it wasn't always to the death. It might even be like, we're going to fight until one gives up, or once surrenders, or hey, tomorrow, tomorrow, troll, we're going to meet on the battlefield of my slain brothers and sisters. And they're like, the trolls are like, yeah, we'll be there tomorrow, high noon. And you're like, all right. And that's just when the fog lifts or something, and the players and the bad guys are on the other side, and they see each other across the battlefield or something. I mean, that could be pretty cool to implement in a game. Mentally, I'm just imagining it at the table. Like, yeah, that might be a cool thing to do. Mike says, back on topic, there may be knights of the same order of disparate alignments who disagree strongly. Oh, hell yeah. But if there's a call to duty, you show up. Your lord cares not cares not if Sir Gregory and Eric the Black have issues. Yeah, your banner calls. And how cool would it be, like, the how do you, both players and adversaries, hide the fact that you don't like each other? And this could become a mechanical thing. Like, Eric the Black might have hired uh, soldiers, assassins, basically, who Eric the Black knows, okay, you know what? I can't backstab you. I really can't even get away with poisoning you. But maybe, just maybe, we can cut the straps on your mounted ride. Or you're calling for aid, but for some reason, there's a reason why we couldn't hear you on the battlefield or something. Or someone kills your bannerman, and when you lift your banner, that's the call for aid. And sure, the call for aid is supposed to help you out, but your bannerman fell and we didn't see it, so sorry, you're trapped behind. behind the enemy on your own, right? Might be kind of cool to have to like flip the puzzle of the problem of not wanting to save maybe this evil knight or something who's garnering all of this attention because they have the best hype man, on their side, and the players are like, "Damn it! Oh, I was the best in the battle." And like, yeah, but they got the best stories, you know. Mike says the hobgoblins of the Red Sun Khanate in Thol have a very Bushido-like code, including a serrated back edge of their dowels or swords. If a rider dishonors their Khan or becomes useless, that earned edge is for your own neck. Ooh, I likes that. Um, the Green Knight, the movie The Green Knight, in many ways is like a test of honor, of growth, and maybe even a little bit of atonement. And we often roll our eyes and suck our teeth and want to fold our arms and pout when the paladin of the group breaks their oath, and it's like, I have to atone for my sins, and the other players are like, oh, okay, does that mean this is boring? I have to wait in the background. Or much like a player that wants to craft a magic item, or a player that has to go on a specific quest for their warlock patron or something like that. Instead, the idea of atoning for something, or uh, gaining more honor, might be the adventure unto itself. Like, you know what, guys, I screwed up, and I've got certain vices I got to get over, and I need to prove myself. I sure would love you guys to come along, and your friends are like, yeah, we'll come along with you, sure, why not? And that becomes a story unto itself. You know what I mean? So yeah. Hey there, very long ape. um, Apex Behemoth, Alpha King Foxyzilla. Okay, all right, Foxyzilla. I don't know. You're the Apex Behemoth. Okay. In Rifts, Cyber Knights will lose magic power if they do a dishonorable deed. Oftentimes, I I, I don't. I've never agreed with how that's been used mechanically in game, because often what happens is that someone plays the honorable character, performs one act that's questionably dishonorable, and everybody jumps on that character. You should lose your powers. You don't have your powers anymore. Paladins back in the day, lawful good. Today, it's out breaking your oath. Clerics fall into that category. Druids a little bit. Everybody else, everyone just ignores that. Maybe warlocks a little bit, but I'm like, no, that's an opportunity to tell a story. That's not, you don't go 0 to 60 and go, well, you don't have your powers. You're not a paladin anymore. You're just a really stupid, inefficient fighter. It's like, no, 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 no. Let's work with this. Let's see what happens. Maybe their abilities change or shift, or there are temptational, there are monstrosities out there that wait for an opening, and now the opening's there, and they come out of the woodworks. Much like the Green Knight. For those who don't know, in the Green Knight shows up at the round table, and all the knightly order, and the Green Knight, clearly something arcane going on, because even described in the story, the Green Knight is emerald from head to toe, from the eyeballs to the toenails to the whole 9 yards, right? And says, um, challenges any knight there to strike him, and in a year and a day will meet the same strike upon that individual. Now, we know there's a way to break this rule, right? You could walk up as a knight, go up to the Green Knight, mean mug him a little bit, almost like you're about to punch him from the side of the face, like in one of those World Star videos or something like that, and literally tap the Green Knight on the shoulder. And a year and a day later, the Green Knight comes and visits you back, and visits you with the same attack in kind, right? But the story of Gawain is that Gawain really isn't a knight yet. He's young, doesn't really know what he's doing, and takes the Green Knight's axe. Of course, the Green Knight is kind of leading him on, and kneels down, and Gawain takes the axe and chops his head off, and it was like, yeah, because I'm a badass, right? And then the Green Knight reaches down and picks up his own severed head and was like, all right, I'm gonna be back in a year and a day. We'll see what happens. I'm gonna meet you in kind. And Gawain's like, mother, oh shit, like this dude's gonna cut my head off. And in the context of the story, Gawain and the other knights believe absolutely to their core that this Green Knight will visit the same thing, and there's no way he can get around it, right? In a modern context, players are like, I'm going to figure out how to kill the Green Knight permanently, so I don't get, this isn't visited upon me a year and a day, but instead, this honorable knight knows, ooh, I fucked up, ooh. And the story is, how does this knight learn what it takes to become a knight through the travel of having to go confront the Green Knight within a year and a day afterwards, and goes, yeah, I'm going to have to, there's no way I'm going to be able to avoid this. I got to go meet him, see what happens. Mike Gould says atonement might come at the hands of your enemy, the most risky atonement. Yeah. Kneeling down before your enemy and whatnot. And honestly, what while we have a love-hate relationship with Star Wars now, at the time we forget that in Star Wars, Luke Skywalker actually succeeded by not fighting, right? Like, I'm gonna take out the Emperor by going, you know what, Vader, there's something good in you, and I'm going to stop fighting. And we forget about that part. We're always like, yeah, I want to be a badass Jedi. Well, yeah, that's cool, but not fighting, parlaying, using diplomacy, talking your way out of things was a knightly function. It's like, no, I'm not going to draw my sword when talking to the Sphinx or the Naga or something like that. We're going to have a conversation. You gave me a puzzle. Let's figure this out. There's a riddle, Mike Gould says Gawain needs to read the rules better. He lacked out of the box thinking. Shameless self-promotion. Yep. Yeah. It's the old it's the old coaches thing. I just remember a coach is like, who can tap the other person the softest, and a kid would come up and try to just lightly touch the coach on the shoulder, and the coach would ball up his fist and bam, pound the kid in the chest. It's like, I lose, bam. And you know what I mean? Like, yeah. Vampanoy says, if your paladin or whatever player acts uncharacteristic, you can ask them outside a game why and work with that. Oh, hell yeah. Yep. If they wanted to go Oathbreaker, for example, you can just flavor their lay on hands feature that whenever they use it, it's painful. It's painful to, let's see if I can. Okay. It's painful to the one receiving healing. Mechanically, nothing changes, but it makes a noticeable change yet in the narrative. Oh, hell yeah, Vampanoy. And listen, I think it's always paladins in general have always gotten a bad rap, and oaths. Today, it's more oaths than being lawful good and alignment. Alignment has gotten a bad rap as well, because I feel like there's nothing wrong with how it works. It's us as the people who use it, the piling on the rabbit, the judgments, the trying to solve a situation when solving it is the game itself, right? If a player goes in and wants to kill goblin babies and pregnant, goblin women, because the monster manual says they're evil and I'm lawful good, it's what happens afterwards. It's not trying to solve it then. It's, yeah, let it happen and then move on from the story. Maybe that character or that player really did want to become an Oathbreaker. Maybe that player didn't understand the ramifications. Maybe the player is just very metagamey, or living with the consequences. Let it have. That's how role playing is a lot different. Well, maybe not so different with video games now, but maybe that's how things are different in the world. Play it out, and like you said, maybe the laying on hands I don't know, leaves a black mark on the victim, and they know they've been touched by this dishonorable individual, or maybe the words they speak, maggots and bugs fly out of their mouths when they try to speak the truth again, or something like that, or when they speak lies, or maybe their shadow looks like an evil entity wherever they walk until they're able to atone for their sins or something. Like you could come up with all kinds of weird, really cool narrative elements. Whether they cry tears of blood, or their footsteps look like there's rot and gore wherever their footsteps lay, or something like that, or their hands are cold whenever they touch someone, like they smell of death, or anything. Mike says there's a great line in the Star Wars fan film. A Jedi Master referred to the lightsaber thus: "This is merely light, but has weight." That's my favorite description of the repercussions of combat. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. This is light, but it has weight. Yeah. Kylie says paladins were pretty OP at first. Yeah, they were pretty overpowered. Yeah, roleplay restrictions made more sense then, and yeah, we all kind of wanted to see their oath broken. Well, also it was, remember back in the day, it was like you were supposed to roll your stats, and you needed like I think it was a minimum of 17 charisma and whatnot. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, hey Apex. Vampanoid says works for other classes. Maybe your evil warlock had a change of heart and their eldritch blast changes color. Yeah, why not? I again, it's the pile and the rabbit mentality that we seem to hold over from past editions. You're absolutely right. Why? Of course, it works for other character concepts and classes. And hell, it even I don't I don't know if any of you are of a certain gentlemen of and ladies and whatnot of a certain age, but listen, back in the day, between 8th to 11th level, you gained your name level, and characters, when they gain your named level, it was kind of the idea that that's about the time you could retire your character, and there were certain responsibilities. So rogues weren't just skilled individuals, they were thieves, and you owed money to the thieves guild. Like, you had a responsibility. Clerics had a responsibility to a religious order. Fighters had a responsibility to either protect the nation or start their own kingdom, essentially create a keep or a fort or something. So it wasn't just about breaking your oaths, but you actually had responsibilities far above your what you put in your backpack and what you could put on your mount and leave and walk out of there. It was very much a collective. People, you gained followers. Remember henchmen, followers, retainers. Henchmen, followers, retainers, and there was a fourth one. I can't remember. Anyway, but yeah, there were certain not yeoman. It had a game effect too. But yeah, at name level, Mike says at name level, you're attracting followers, building strongholds. Yeah, absolutely. And I think another great thing you could add into a honorable knightly type of setting in a game is to give players responsibilities, right? Hey, Vamp, yeah. Vamp's like a fourth one could be a harem for bards. Oh, hells yes. Yeah. Oh, man. You're absolutely right. I think it's matter of fact, let's see if I can find. I made a thumbnail about it too. And because it's bothering me. It's bothering me so much. There it is. It's hirelings, henchmen, followers, and retainers. Yes, that hirelings and henchmen were two separate things, and then it was followers and retainers. Sorry, it was bothering me a little bit. Oh man. All right. Sorry. AG says at level 4 you get a spell. At level 8 you get a job. Great idea for having the character in the back pocket if you ever wanted to bring it back. Yep. And of course, back in the day, the idea was that you would have you would have an entourage of characters that you would use so that when, for example, your wizard type character or your cleric character was off studying or meditating or something, and that would take a longer amount of time, you would pull out another, maybe a lower level character or something like that and use them because you had to pay for studying and crafting and spells and building fortresses. And it's like, well, if your eighth or ninth level fighter was building a stronghold, which character did you play? Well, you had your extra fourth level rogue or something like that on the side, which was and it was a way for you to play different characters, but they all had like connections to each other. It's a kind of different thing. But anyway, guys, we're getting to the end of it. We're going to talk about this tomorrow. Thank you very much for just being part of the show. I do have to get out of here, head off to work, but just to cap things off, along with the usual call to action, the like, share, subscribe, and all that kind of business. You'll see me bring up now and in the future the idea of the Creators Conclave, and there are many content creators out there who I feel deserve a voice, and myself being part of this larger world of the Creators Conclave. These people, podcasters, writers, developers, editors, layout artists, other YouTube, Twitch streamers, and whatnot. A lot of them out there. You'll get to know who they are, but please keep in mind, if you ever see the conclave, you'll see a symbol out there and whatnot. Keep it in mind because I think it might benefit you in the future to engage with what they have. So if you like what we do here, if you like what we do here, you'll probably like what they do there. So as always, hey, thanks, Deadman. Mike's like, yeah, of course. Mike's like, I ride eternal, shiny and chromatic. Take that. Yeah. And Kylie, anytime. By the way, kind of funny, ironic because, side note, we don't have enough people at work. So the job's like, hey, we need people to come in early because we need more bodies. That's what they call us, bodies. I got to carry my route and half of somebody else's route every day. It's a pain in the ass. But so me having more seniority, I was like, well, I'll pick like a Monday, Tuesday, so I don't have to, I don't have a huge workload the rest of the week. Will end up turning out that to run the show on Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays turned out to be WTF, and I part of me just finds that just to be pretty humorous. It's not funny for anybody else, but it's pretty silly for myself. So thank you very much, there, Dead Man. As always, check out the Facebook book group, the Creators Conclave, as well. There are a number of people there, and I'll be talking about it. It will be a little bit deep in the weeds. We'll be talking about such things as, don't tell anybody, marketing and branding and that kind of stuff. But if you yourself are a content creator, or better yet, I believe it was Kylie that said the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is now. If you plan on being a content creator of any type in the future, the time to start is now. Right. And let's be honest, nobody knows who I am. And if you want to create, we all are world creators. We all want to make a 400-page book that's our world, and we want people to embrace it. But in order for that to happen, people have to know who you are. Well, if you want to know, you want to be part of something where they know who you are, it's going to be this Creators Conclave. And rest assured, slowly and surely, I think you're going to see it out there. Fingers crossed. So thank you guys very much for being part of the show. I got to get out of here. Everyone, thank you so much for just being just friggin' loyal. Your time is precious and valuable. I'm glad you can spend it here. I hope I can give you back a little bit of change. Guys, have a great one. I'll see